Quadratic equations by factorisation 1. Quadratic equations are equations with two correct answers. They normally have an x squared in them. Factorisation means putting something into brackets. So we're going to solve these equations by putting them into brackets. Now, before we start solving the equation, let's remind ourselves about something. If I have 0 times something, that's equal to 0. And it doesn't matter what the something is. It could be 100, it could be 1,000, it could be 1,000,000. Similarly, if I have something times 0, that equals 0. That could be 1,000,000, 1,000,000,000, or 1,000,000,000,000. It doesn't matter. If it's times by 0, it equals 0. Thinking about it the other way, if I've got something times something else, and that's equal to 0, one of these two must be equal to 0. Either the first thing is equal to 0, or the second thing is equal to 0. Here's a quadratic equation. X squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0. So we're looking for something that we square it, we times it by itself, plus 5 of the somethings, plus 6, and that's equal to 0. And there will be two answers. We're going to put them into brackets. As I've got a single x squared at the front, I can put down a set of double brackets, both with an x in it. Now, to fill in the remainder, I look at these two numbers, the plus 5 and the plus 6. I need two numbers that add up to 5, and the same two numbers I've got to multiply to give me 6. The two numbers are 3 and 2. 3 plus 2 is 5, and 3 times 2 is 6. So that lets me fill in the rest of the double brackets. X squared plus 5x plus 6 is exactly the same as x plus 3 times x plus 2. Now I've put them into brackets, I can say to myself, if something times something else equals 0, either the first bracket's 0 or the second bracket's 0. So let's look at the first bracket first of all. If the first bracket's 0, x plus 3 equals 0. Take away 3 from both sides, and I end up with x equals minus 3. That's my first answer. But there's another answer as well. The x plus 2 could be equal to 0. So I write down x plus 2 equals 0, and then I solve this equation. Take away 2 from both sides, and end up with x equals minus 2. These are the two answers to the quadratic equation. X is minus 3 or x is minus 2. And I write down both answers. If I put them down into the original equation, x squared plus 5x plus 6, x minus 3 or x minus 2 would both give me 0. X squared plus 1x minus 20 equals 0. So, something squared plus one of the somethings, take away 20, equals 0. And there'll be two answers. To solve it by factorisation, I need to put it into double brackets first. As I've got a single x squared at the front, I can straight away put down double brackets with an x at the front of both of them, because these two are multiplied to give me an x squared. Next, I need to look at the plus 1 and the minus 20. I say to myself, I need two numbers, something plus something equals plus 1, and the number times the number equals minus 20. What are these two numbers? Well, one of them must be negative, because I've got something times something equals minus 20. And the answer is 5 and minus 4. 5 plus minus 4 is 1. Remember that adding a negative number is the same as taking it away. And 5 times minus 4 is minus 20. Remember, if I've got one negative in the question, then the answer is negative. So now I can go back to my double brackets and fill in the answers. X squared plus 1x minus 20 is exactly the same as x plus 5 times x minus 4. Now if that's equal to 0, either the first bracket is 0 or the second bracket is 0. And these two will give me my two answers. Let's work out the first one first. If the first bracket is 0, x plus 5 equals 0. Take away 5 from both sides, and I end up with x equals minus 5. That's my first answer. If the second bracket is equal to 0, x minus 4 equals 0. Add 4 to both sides, and x is 4. These are my two answers. If I put minus 5 into the original equation, I'd get 0 out. But also if I put x is 4 into the original equation, I'd also get 0 out. So they are two answers. X squared minus 7x plus 12 equals 0. So something squared minus 7 times something plus 12 equals 0. And there'll be two answers. If we're going to do it by factorisation, we need to put it into double brackets. Now as I've got a single x squared at the front, I can straight away put down double brackets with an x at the front of both of them. Next, I need to look at minus 7 and the plus 12. I need two numbers that add together to give minus 7 and multiply together to give plus 12. Now, as they multiply together to give plus 12 and they add together to give minus 7, they're probably both going to be negatives, because a negative times a negative is a positive. And the two answers are minus 4 and minus 3. Remember that adding a negative number is the same as taking it away. So minus 4, take away 3 is minus 7. Minus 4 times minus 3, remember two negatives make a positive. So minus 4 times minus 3 is plus 12. Now I can go back and fill in the numbers. X squared minus 7x plus 12 is the same as x minus 4 times x minus 3. Now, if these two things multiply to give equal to 0, either the first bracket is 0 or the second bracket is 0. And these will give me my two answers. If the first bracket is 0, x minus 4 equals 0. Add 4 to both sides, x is 4. That's my first answer. If the second bracket is 0, x minus 3 equals 0. Add 3 to both sides, x is 3. X is 4, x is 3 are my two answers. And if I put these two into my original equation, x squared minus 7x plus 12, they would both give me 0 out. And these are the only two numbers that do. Quadratic equations are equations with two correct answers. Factorisations means putting it into double brackets. If something times something else equals 0, either the first thing's 0 or the second thing's 0.